So I'm proposing a common sense solution that gets these billionaires and oligarchs to contribute in a similar way. We'll tax second homes of non-New York City residents that are valued at $5 million or more, resulting in at least $500 million in tax revenue for New York City.
The New York City mayor is doubling down on the CEO, despite Citadel's threats to pull that $6 billion from the city.
I want New Yorkers to succeed. I want them to build businesses, to grow our economy, and to create good-paying jobs. And Ken Griffin has been a part of that. I'm intent, however, on balancing this budget in a manner that asks the wealthiest and the most profitable corporations to pay that little bit more so that everyone can afford to live in the city. And that means Ken Griffin, and that means so many others across the city.
So I think the willingness of the mayor of New York to make this a policy debate, a personal attack, just demonstrated a profound lack of judgment.
So let me count how many ways this policy is stupid. That's sheer, blind stupidity, that policy.
Kevin O'Leary just called New York City's new tax policy sheer, blind stupidity. But the mayor is doubling down anyway. So let's actually look at this concept. Let's look at the policy. Let's look at the numbers, because someone has to. Let's get into it.
I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate, but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others. Happy Tax Day, New York.
Okay, so that's the pitch, right? We've seen this before. Tax homes worth $5 million or more owned by people who don't live in New York City full time, and it's supposed to project to bring in $500 million. And Mamdani is calling this a common sense solution. So let's be fair. I think for most people, you talk to them on the street, you say, you know what, this idea taxing the second home, it sounds reasonable. These are rich people. There's a big properties that, maybe they should contribute more. That's the emotional argument you're going to get from people, especially if you're in New York City, you're paying record high rent, food is expensive, transportation is expensive. So that's the argument. Say, well, we're all suffering a little bit. They have the extra money. They should give up more money. But if you look at what's actually happening, you understand that before you celebrate this, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why we're doing this.
Well, let's just look at the policy itself instead of the emotional aspect of it. Yes. Number one, these people do not live in the city. They do not burden the city with anything because they're obviously out-of-towners. They spend $5 million plus, so that means jobs, union jobs, construction jobs, that after their unit is built, that they're not using any of the city's services, which is what the city needs, less people putting pressure on it, they pay taxes and they pay maintenance jobs to maintain the buildings. So let me count how many ways this policy is stupid, because you want more of these people. You want thousands more of them that don't live here, pay taxes, pay maintenance, create jobs in construction, and don't use the city's services. That's sheer, blind stupidity, that policy.
So O'Leary breaks this down. I want to walk through this actual argument because this is where it gets interesting. So Kevin O'Leary is a rich person, right? Wealthy. And you think, well, he's defending rich people. He's not really defending rich people. He's describing what non-residents, property owners actually do for New York City. The mayor and the governor make it seem like they contribute nothing. They swoop in, buy the $5 million property, and then nothing happens after that. But what actually happens is when they buy the $5 million property, that's construction jobs, that's union jobs, that's real jobs for the real New Yorkers that live here. Then the building needs to be maintained. That's more jobs. Property taxes get paid. That's city revenue. And then they leave. They go back to wherever they came from. They're not in the emergency room. They're not in the subway every day. They're not stressing any of the city services. So when you think about it, it's a net positive for the city. So when Mamdani slaps them with a surcharge and then Ken Griffin responds by saying he's going to pull $6 billion out of New York City.
Ken, recently the mayor of New York pointed out that you had bought an apartment in New York and he wanted you to pay a so-called pied-à-terre tax, even though you have employed thousands of people in New York. You're building a new building in New York. You're contributing a lot of tax money to New York. Did that upset you?
What upset me was the personal attack, because where they assassinated the CEO of United Healthcare. So I think the willingness of the mayor of New York to make this a policy debate, a personal attack, just demonstrated a profound lack of judgment, just a profound lack of judgment. And I understand that New York has bills to pay. Would you like to run New York for us for a couple of years?
I'm unelectable, Kenny. Nobody would vote for me.
Yes, but like you could actually
be a distraction from running around.
Are you going to, Ken, you're going to go ahead with your building in New York?
Well, I'm meeting with the governor Thursday.
Okay, you'll figure it out.
And we'll talk about our future direction in New York. Here's the real question. Is New York going to put their fiscal house in order and run itself from a position of a strong government that's pro-business? Or are they looking to play, why do the Americans think we can do socialism? We have none of that in our DNA, and we're just going to screw it up.
Now, Ken.
That's not just a threat, that's math. You made it less attractive to have money in his city. So the money's gonna go somewhere else, to a different city. And all the jobs and tax revenue goes with it. We talked about this a couple of videos ago about Starbucks, what's going on in Seattle. Starbucks taking thousands of their jobs from Seattle to Nashville. Why? Because the tax issues and the millionaire tax that's been passed in the state of Washington.
Chance for us to ask you just your thoughts about it, and is there any concern about other businesses leaving? This is a big Starbucks to Seattle.
This is, again, not the subject of our press conference.
Yet when she finally answered.
So Starbucks expansion to Nashville has been in the works for years. Seattle will remain their North American HQ, and we're confident of that.
Thank you, everybody.
O'Leary said it very clear. You want more of these people, not fewer. That's not an opinion. That's just cause and effect. Now, I know many of you guys are going to be in the comments right now. Hannibal defends the billionaires. O'Leary is just another rich person defending the rich. Now, this is where I want you to stop and really think about this, because this is the whole game here. The second you point out that our policy doesn't make economic sense, you get labeled a billionaire defender, shill, wrong side of the history. But think about what it actually does. It just shuts down the conversation. Before the math and logic gets even heard, before anyone asks, if this surcharge is so smart, why is the city still facing a budget gap in the billions? $500 million is a lot of money, but it doesn't fix this multi-billion-dollar hole. So what else is going on? And here's my question here, and I'm being completely dead serious. Who benefits when you can't criticize politicians' bad policies? Not you, not me, not the working class New Yorker watching their rent go up while their services get cut anyway. The people who benefit are the politicians, the ones who get to point at the oligarchs while real money, the fraud money, the inflated city contract money, the nonprofit funny business walks right out the door completely untouched. Think about all the politicians that go to Congress and then all of a sudden they become multimillionaires. Nancy Pelosi has all this money. How's that possible? You're telling me that she just figured out how to be one of the best investors in the last century? Think about it. We're talking about so many politicians, how they're able to get properties, they have great investment portfolios. What's going on? These politicians are just as corrupt as you could say some of the corporate people. So I'm not defending Ken Griffin. Ken Griffin does not need my help. He's got lawyers, he has accountants, and he has a $6 billion portfolio. He's fine. What I am saying is, if the math doesn't work, the math doesn't work. And you get called a sellout for saying that, someone is using your outrage as a shield, and that somebody is an elected official, not a billionaire. Bernie Sanders, at one point, I'm old enough to remember, when he used to talk about the millionaires and billionaires, until he became a millionaire, and now he only focused on the billionaires. The issue would continue to raise taxes, to continue to say, oh, they just have to pay a little bit more. When is the limit? What is the limit? How much little more you have to pay to eventually people just leave? We can't figure out the spending issue that we have and how so much corruption and so much money is being siphoned off that doesn't reach the people. The only solution politicians are going to have is to raise more taxes. New York City already spends a lot of money on the homeless situation and schooling, and we still have tons of homeless people, and our kids are not doing well.
This is the 15th homeless shelter in Greenwood Heights. This one is over 300 plus beds for homeless men.
We're seeing shelters sprouting up all over the city. We're finding that it's nearly $10,000 per unit per month.
Big corruption. $10,000 a month per bed, $3 million a month. At night, this is not full. We're still paying the $3 million a month in taxpayers' money. Unoccupied or occupied, do you not understand the corruption that goes on in New York State? in New York City. You deal with your effing lobbyists and your people that control you, and you get paid off, you get your little donations, and you get some money, and God knows how many people eating off of this shit. Wait a minute. This is the reason why it's unaffordable? $45 million a month? $540 million in 8 blocks in Brooklyn. You wanna fix your budget, Mrs. Governor? And the Magic Wand guy? You wanna fix your budget right now? The fuck I gotta tax the rich for?
So we are continuing to put money into something that doesn't work. New York City has real problems. I live here. I've been here since 1984 when I was born. Real affordability issues, real budget issues. I'm here, I see it. But taxing away the people who aren't causing those problems is probably not the move. And when someone actually does the math out loud, that matters regardless of who's saying it. You need to continue to ask questions they don't want you to ask. We're going to see the results of bad voting decisions. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.